Right. Well, good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year to you all. I hope you've all enjoyed the festive period and are ready for our first Discover Wildlife Talk of 2026. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. My name is Jordan, and I oversee all of the tailor-made trips we have at Wildlife Worldwide, or trip ideas, as we call them. And this evening, I'm joined by my legendary colleague, Helen Bryon, who I'm sure many of you know already, for what's sure to be a fascinating insight into the Galapagos Islands. As always, you're welcome to ask questions throughout using the Q&A and chat functions, and I will present them to Helen at the end. And so, without further ado, over to Helen.
Thank you very much, Jordan. And let me just echo his thoughts as well. Yes, Happy New Year, everybody. Crikey, it seems like only the other day that I was hosting one of our lovely naturalist Indian guides, Anurag, and that was actually quite a few weeks ago. So anyway, 2026 is here and we are heading to the Galapagos. Let's go and get some winter sun and get away from the cold that we have at the moment. So the Galapagos, my word, it has to be one of the ultimate bucket list trips on anybody's agenda. Its wildlife is absolutely legendary. From Sally Lightfoot crabs through to the wonderful blue-footed boobies and their red-footed cousins. We've also got home of the Galapagos penguins, the only penguin that is found in the Northern Hemisphere. And of course, you can't think about the Galapagos without really thinking about Darwin's finches. So the great man himself, he visited in 1835, so almost 200 years ago. Surprisingly, he only spent 5 weeks on the islands, and he only visited a handful of them. And yet his seminal life's work is obviously, the founding theory of modern natural science. But coming back to the islands and their wildlife, really, this is quite unusually a reptilian-dominated destination. From the giant tortoises that Darwin worked with to lava lizards that are themselves also evolution in action. There are different lava lizards that have adapted to different landscapes and different diets on various Galapagos islands. We have, of course, got many snakes, both on land and in sea. We've got wonderful land iguanas. We have marine iguanas. And underwater, they're so ungainly on land, and then you see them swimming down in order to feed on the algae, headbutting the rocks to get that algae dislodged. And they are the most serene creatures underwater. Their body generally stays fairly stationary with just that movement of the tail, maneuvering them with such ease through these clear waters. It's probably the one destination that I always think of when anybody asks me about snorkeling with turtles. It is unreal. It's the sea lions. My gosh, anyone who has had the great fortune to swim with these wonderful creatures, it's the ability to mirror them. If they start to turn over and swirl in the water, and then if you do that as well, they will swim with you. It's like they're playing with you. They are so wonderfully inquisitive. And you can't help but just giggle through your snorkel. You are filled with such a high on life after a wonderful experience with these incredible creatures. But not just underwater, on land too. And really, it's the proximity with which you can get to these animals and spend time with these animals, just observing them in their natural habitat with no visible fear from them at all. This is one of the key points that really sets the Galapagos apart from any other wildlife destination, where you can spend time just sitting, watching nesting albatross. I fell in love with these albatross in April of this year. On my visits prior to that, the islands or the island on which they nest had been closed for bird flu. But one look at the buttermilk colouring on the back of their heads Their gorgeous, gorgeous, deep eyes. My gosh, this is a wonderful bird, and one that I can't wait to go back and spend more time with again in April this year and next. It's the ability to look at a bird in the eye and to take a photograph where you can see yourself reflected in that eye. This is not an everyday wildlife experience. It's not just watching wildlife. It's almost being part of it. They are as inquisitive about us as we are about them. So whether it's boobies, whether it is courting frigate birds, whether it is mating swallow-tailed gulls, whether it is nesting red-footed boobies, newborn chicks, you can literally walk past what looks like a chicken fillet with a couple of bits of feathers on it, and it won't move, neither will its parent. It's this proximity that is just so special, and that's not just limited to the aviflora or avifauna even, but also to young sea lions. They will nurse right next to you. You actually have to get out of their way. Last year we were actually stepping over nursing sea lions in order to get to our boat. So it's a fantastic destination, and it's just 1,000 kilometers off the Ecuadorian mainland. So in terms of getting there, it's really quite easy. Up in the top right-hand side of your screen here, you can see above Ecuador, you can see Quito, the capital. And Quito is an Andean capital. It's fairly high. What we do is we fly into Quito, and we always have one overnight there, because the flights from Quito that head out to the Galapagos Islands only ever depart in the mornings. So you have a night in Quito and then you fly out. It's only a 2-hour flight, and your first point of entry will be one of 2 islands, either Baltra in the center of your screen or San Cristobal in the east. Those are the only 2 airports that serve the Galapagos Islands. If we're going through Quito, why not extend your stay? Quito itself is a beautiful, beautiful city. It's nice to have a day or 2 to acclimatize there before you actually go out and do some exploring. But mainland Ecuador offers so much that you can do in conjunction with the Galapagos Islands. So whether you want to explore the Avenue of Volcanoes, this is Cotopaxi, whether you want to go to the markets of Otavalo, whether you want to go for a more wildlife-orientated trip. Of course, that's what we are always going to opt for. This is the home of the spectacled bear, or Paddington, and there are many cloud forested areas within a couple of hours' drive of Quito, where you will then be in a prime position to go looking for this somewhat elusive creature. You can immerse yourself in the cloud forests around Quito, between 2 and 4 hours drive away. This is Mashpi, a very, very well-known eco-lodge that is doing valuable research into cloud forest systems. So you can spend time looking for toucan barbets, for sword-billed hummingbirds, or you might like to fly from Quito down into the Amazon. And from the Amazon, we have a number of wildlife lodges. This is Napo, again, quite a well-known trip where you can basically be among the glasswing butterflies, the bugs that are just numerous in the Amazon ecosystem, as you spend time on the river looking for giant river otter and a whole heap of primates that you may be lucky enough to come across as well. So there's plenty of choice when it comes to combining the Galapagos Islands with other areas of interest in Ecuador. When it comes to the islands themselves, where do you start? Now, if you go onto our website and you look up the Galapagos Islands, you are going to be faced with around 12 trips. Western Galapagos highlights, Eastern Galapagos highlights, Northern Galapagos highlights, Southern Galapagos highlights, Western luxury, Eastern luxury, I mean, there are so many options. It's a little bit of a minefield. So what I hope to do over the course of the next 45 minutes or so is clarify how you work out which trip will be right for you. And essentially, we're going to start with a geography lesson. So do we go west, east, north, or south? It doesn't really matter where you go. The core iconic wildlife, such as marine iguanas, Sally Lightfoot crabs, Galapagos sea lions, giant tortoise, boobies, you are likely to see most of them, whichever itinerary you choose. The difference between going west and east, for example, is largely the scenery in which you will find yourself. So, a quick plate tectonics lesson here. The Galapagos, being 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador, they are on the western side of what is known as the Nazca Plate. And that Nazca Plate that you can see underneath the ocean on top of the Earth's mantle is essentially moving in an easterly direction. So the Galapagos Islands as a whole are slowly moving closer to the South American continent every single day of the year. In the west, we have a hotspot, an area, a magna plume that is coming from deep within the Earth. And this is basically creating mountains that are the tips of volcanoes that we can see above the ocean. And the newest volcanoes are basically arising in the western part of the archipelago. They're coloured grey because newest volcanoes, there's going to be very little vegetation on them. It's going to be bare lava fields as far as the eye can see. You're going to be smoking. You may see some eruptions. You may see some mini eruptions. But if you go further to the eastern side, as the Nazca Plate moves and pulls the islands further across to the east with it, they've been above sea level. So the islands are being eroded. So some of them are not as tall as the volcanoes that you will find in the west. But more importantly, you will find that more of them are more established in terms of the vegetation that you have on them. Hence, they go from brown with a hint of green to more green to deep green as the vegetation becomes more dense. So from the west to the east, you've got younger islands in the west, far more bare lava fields in the west, and as you move across to the east, more and more vegetation, and in some ways that's going to support more and more life. So geography lesson over. All of the life on the Galapagos, land and sea, much of it is protected. 97% of the Galapagos Islands are classified as national park, which is huge. And that's also brilliant because it means that ecotourism is very, very carefully monitored. And therefore, when we think about where we want to go, we now have to start thinking about which islands and what we particularly want to see. What you'll find is that this is a year-round destination. So there are generally 7-night voyages that depart weekly throughout the year, alternatively doing a Western Galapagos route followed by an Eastern Galapagos route. Sometimes, to throw something else into the mix, there's also a north and a south. So this is really what our website starts with, Western Galapagos. And what I'm going to do is just really give you a rough overview of why you might like to consider going west. We know already now that these are the youngest islands in the group. So more bare lava, less vegetation, and higher volcanic peaks. The islands of Fernandina and Isabella are the youngest. And then as we move across to Santiago and Santa Cruz, and then the east we will cover later. Why go west? Well, west is considered best if you are a cetacean lover. If you want to see whales and dolphins in the Galapagos, you need to be going to the western side of the archipelago to have the most amount of luck in finding them. They do tend to be seasonal visitors. So we've also got to bring in the seasons. The dotted line that you've got going right across the screen in front of you is the equator. So it's warm year round. We're talking on average, let's say anywhere between 20 and 30 degrees year round. However, there are two distinct seasons to traveling in the Galapagos. The first part of the year, let's say from December through to April, is considered the warmest and the wettest time to travel. But don't let that put you off. The warm, wet period, December to April, tends to offer the clearest sea conditions. So if you are looking very much to travel with an emphasis on what is under the water, then December to April is going to be magic. Your average temperatures during this warm, wet season will be around 27 degrees, and your average water temperature will be about 24 degrees. So nice and toasty. So cetaceans. The cetaceans are in the west because there are a number of cold currents that come from the deep in the west. There are three major water currents that affect the Galapagos. And it's the Cromwell current that comes up from the deep, bringing nutrients with it. And that is what attracts the whales and the dolphins. So your best chance of seeing whales and dolphins is over our summer months into our autumn months. And the reason they're in the west is because the water tends to be colder on this side of the archipelago. That also is good for penguins. Penguins also like the cooler temperatures. So west is often considered best for penguins, for cetaceans over our summer and into autumn. But there are also a few opportunities to see penguins off the island of Santiago. So you've got double the chance on a Western Galapagos highlights itinerary of coming across penguins at numerous spots. You've also got one particular bird species that is only found in the west, and that is the flightless cormorant. So if you particularly want to see a flightless cormorant, you want to be coming to the western part of the archipelago. So that's the west. If we move on to the eastern part and our Eastern Galapagos highlights itinerary that is listed on our website, we know again from our little geography lesson that these are going to be older islands. They're going to be more established in terms of vegetation. That can provide hiding places for various different types of creatures. But in a nutshell, we know that we've got a chance of seeing penguins because we have them off this bit off Santiago. If we head to the northeast to Genovesa Island, this is where you are most likely to come across red-footed boobies. So if you particularly want to see red-footed boobies, you need to be including Genovesa on your itinerary. This is also in the east, Española territory, down in the bottom of your screen here. Española is particularly known for its waved albatross. And the waved albatross are found on Española between April and December only. Then they go out to sea. So Genovesa for red-footed boobies, Española for waved albatross, but you would need to be traveling between April and December. Okay. We also have a couple of brilliant snorkeling sites. Floriana has the tip of a blown out volcano called the Devil's Crown that is particularly known for its snorkeling potential. I can't talk tonight. Sorry, I'm tripping up over my words left, right and centre. And Genovesa is also very good in terms of snorkeling, particularly for hammerheads. So there's quite a lot of info coming at you here, but the eastern side for particular bird species, Genovesa red-footed boobies, Española waved albatross between April and December. You are likely to see penguins off Sullivan, and also then we have pretty good snorkeling sites. But to be honest, you could put the whole archipelago in your pocket and you'd have a belter of a snorkeling site right there. Okay, So our website also talks about a northern Galapagos highlight trip. This goes into Genovesa, red-footed boobies, potential for hammerheads and great snorkeling. It comes across to the northern part of Isabella, so we know that if we're travelling over our summer months to autumn, there's a chance for cetaceans. We've got the flightless cormorant over this side, and west is best for penguins. So finally, we also feature some southern Galapagos highlight trips. These are, as we can see, still including potential for penguin, still including potential for waved albatross on Española from April to December, and including Devil's Crown, but it also includes North Seymour, which is known as Bird Island, for frigates, greater and magnificent, for swallowtail gulls, for blue-footed boobies. North Seymour is fantastic. So there's lots and lots of options for some of those iconic wildlife sightings that we're looking for. Okay, so next up, a consideration with how to choose your trip is your budget. So we prefer to deal with smaller vessels, and just like you can have a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star hotel on land, the same goes with the vessels that we use. Our starter is this lovely, lovely vessel called Cachalote, which is Spanish for sperm whale. And Cachalote is a lovely, lovely vessel. She only has 8 cabins, so she just takes 16 clients. And it's simple, but it's perfectly adequate. It's en-suite accommodation, no frills, but absolutely does the job perfect. You can pay a little bit more to travel in a little bit more style. There are 3 sister boats that are pretty much identical, Origin, Theory and Evolve. They're slightly larger. They have 10 cabins on board, so capacity for 20 people. And you can just see a little bit more plush, a little bit more attention to detail, a little bit more modern in terms of the accommodation that is provided. You can go super plush. The closest that you're going to get to a super yacht would be Aquamari, so it takes 14 people, and this is basically motor cruising with bells on. They have all very, very plush indeed. But another question that we get asked quite a bit about vessels in the Galapagos is it choppy? By and large, I'm going to generalize here, and I'm going to say generally it's not too bad. If you are concerned about seasickness, La Pinta is quite a good option because she's a slightly larger vessel. She takes up to 48 people. Being larger, a little bit more stable, so that could be a good option just if you have that concern in the back of your mind. One thing that all vessels to the Galapagos will have in common is that all of them will have, in addition to the general crew, they will have an onboard naturalist, at least one. They have to be qualified to work in the Galapagos to get this position. The naturalists that I've had so far have all been absolutely superb, friendly, knowledgeable, passionate about the Galapagos Islands, and they lead every single excursion during your stay. Whether you're on a 7-night, a 4-night, a 12-night itinerary, once you're on board, all of your meals tend to be included. Sometimes drinks are, sometimes they're paid extra, it depends on the vessel, but excursions are included. That will involve going out onto islands like here. You need to be able to get on and off a panga, as you can see here. Essentially, there will be a panga driver. The panga driver will help, and also your naturalist will help you with stepping on and off these particular pangas. Getting on them from the boat is relatively easy because you just generally walk down some stairs or a gangway in order to get onto them. But sometimes you are literally stepping off the front of the panga as per here. And your naturalist is always going to be very, very sharp on safety and making sure that they are there to help you get on and off the pangas. On land, when we do go out on our excursions, there will be varying paths and terrain that we are actually walking on. This was 3 years ago, walking along a lava field, essentially, just on the coastal edge. And sometimes we are literally walking over a rocky path like this. Sometimes we're walking along a beach. It could be a powder white sand beach. It could be quite a sharp shell beach. So every night on board, your naturalist will tell you about the excursions the following day. They will tell you what sort of terrain we'll be walking on, how far we'll be walking. It's not normally more than 1 or 2 kilometers, although there are a few exceptions, and what sort of shoe wear would be suitable, whether adventure sandals or whether proper walking shoes would be beneficial. So there's a lot of information given to you when you are on board to help you get the most out of every excursion. We will endeavour to get you in the water at least once a day. The underwater world here is an absolute highlight of anybody's stay. And if you are not sure about the water, the naturalist is always going to come in the water with you. In my experience at the key snorkeling sites, the captain, wild horses won't stop him going in, so he will also be there on hand. And if you're on a trip with myself or Chris Breen and Mark Howardine, we will also be on hand to help you and just to give you a bit of reassurance when you're in the water. But we want you to experience that as much as possible because it is stonking. However, I've had many clients who have said to me right at the start of the trip, I'm not snorkeling, and that's absolutely fine. You know, we can organise panga rides potentially for you instead, subject to crew availability, or you can stay on board, and there's always a lot to see from the deck area on board. So I will try and encourage you to get in the water if at all possible, but I fully understand that it's not for everybody. So you can take part in as much or as little as you like. It's your holiday. Many of these vessels also have kayaks, or sometimes paddle boards. Snorkeling equipment is normally included in the price, including wetsuits, snorkel, fins, and so on, and mask. So it's a very well-run machine. These vessels are doing these trips every 7 days, you know, 1 week to the west, 1 week to the east, 1 week to the west, 1 week to the east throughout the year. So they know what they're doing and they will look after you very much. If, however, the Galapagos are a destination that you really want to go to, but you just don't have sea legs, there are numerous lodge options on land as well. So you can stay on some of the larger islands, and from there you can do day excursions, mornings or even afternoons, out to close snorkel points or landing sites with walks and things to see. So that is also an option that you can experience this destination without having to be on a boat for a week. So there's quite a lot of information that I've just thrown at you just as a starting point. But if you're going all that way, don't just go for a 4-night cruise or a 7-night cruise. Come with me on a 12-night cruise, or go with Chris Breen and Mark Cowardine on a 12-night cruise. We offer 2 private charters. The Galapagos Wildlife Cruise that is led by me every April, and the Galapagos Exclusive with Mark Howardine that is led by Chris and Mark every May. We go in April and May because that is the changeover in the seasons. So I mentioned briefly that December to April tends to be the warmer, wetter time, but with very good water clarity, whereas May to November is the start of the cooler system or season. So in the warm wet, you're looking at average daily temperatures of around 27 degrees with water temperatures around 24. If you go May to November, you're looking around, say, 23 degrees and water temperature of around 21 degrees. So there's not a vast difference. However, the water clarity later in the year is not always so good because of these nutrients coming up from the deep, but that, as we've seen, does attract the whales and the dolphins and so on. So you can still get in the water, you'll still be able to snorkel, and you'll still be able to see an awful lot of what there is to see. It's just a little bit cooler. The windiest months are September and October. So that tends to be the lowest season because of, again, those winds just churn up a little bit within the water. But generally, I would be quite happy saying that the Galapagos is a year-round destination. I've been in January, I've been in October, and I've been a couple of times in April, and I've always had a fantastic experience. Okay, so the Galapagos Wildlife Cruise and the Galapagos Exclusive with Mark Cowadines, they are identical. They use the same vessel. We have exactly the same route that we follow, covering the west and the eastern part of the archipelago, 12 nights on board. So let's go through this in a little bit more detail so that you can see what this particular trip is all about. We fly with KLM. The beauty of KLM is that because you fly from the UK to Amsterdam, if you live in Hull, Glasgow, Cardiff, Bristol, Southampton, Birmingham, East Midlands, Scotland, it doesn't matter. KLM are generally going to be flying from your local airport. You can meet in Amsterdam, and then we all fly from Amsterdam to Quito together on a daily flight that arrives mid-afternoon. We go to our overnight hotel, which is in the historic quarter of of Quito. We overnight there, and then we have a second horribly early morning to then get across to the Galapagos in time for lunch. How marvellous! So we fly from Quito to San Cristobal, which is over in the east that you can see on your screen. And from San Cristobal, we are whisked from the airport a whole, let's say it's a 5 or 6 minute drive down to the port, Puerto Baquerizo Moreno. And at the port, this is it. At the port, there will be a number of vessels in mooring. One of them is ours, obviously, Beluga, and there's a lot of small fishing boats, a lot of small day trip boats. But essentially, the minute you get off the bus and start walking down these boardwalks, you are faced with some of the iconic Galapagos wildlife. They have right of way. I would not sit on this bench if I was you. You will get barked at, and my word, these things can move very quickly and they are very noisy. And if you are in their space, they will let you know. So we're tripping over sea lions. We're probably going to come across our very first marine iguanas. Flying above us will be frigate birds. Walking on the water, or dancing on the water rather beautifully, will be storm petrels. And what they're doing is they're basically trying to attract their prey up from the depths with their dancing. They are the most beautiful little birds, and they will be with us for most of the trip. We then come to Beluga, our home for the next 12 nights. She is ours in her entirety. So it is just Wildlife Worldwide clients, plus me in April, and plus Mark and Chris if you go on the May departure. She is gorgeous. She has a wraparound deck. It doesn't quite wrap all the way around, but it's close enough. Plenty of deck space, and there are 3 levels that you can go up and down to. And on board, it's all very, very comfortable. So there is a combined dining area, bar and lounge area. There are maps everywhere. There's a small reference library. There's Wi-Fi, and there's plenty of room that is covered and uncovered if you are wanting to head out onto the deck, which is where we spend all of our time. Why wouldn't you? Because you just don't know what you're going to see as we go past. All of the rooms are en suite. The ship takes 16 people in total. So on my trip, it's 15 clients plus me. On Chris and Mark's, it's 14 plus them. They're all en suite. They're all air conditioned and very comfortable. And the crew make the cabins up for you daily and will look after you very well indeed. We get on board, we have lunch, and we immediately get on the pangas back into town, and we jump on board a little bus that will take us to our first excursion, which is to the only freshwater lake in the Galapagos. We often walk around the lake. You don't have to. There are a few stairs to get up to the lake. They're wooden steps that we follow. We take all walks very, very slowly because it's hot, because we're jet lagged, and we always encourage you to stop regularly, drink lots of water. Finches, hawk moths, they're all going to accompany us on our trip up there. There'll be lots of wildflowers. And then when we get to the top, frigate birds, monarchs, it's literally the wildlife starts immediately. We come back down to Beluga. We sail out to her after a cold beer, generally in town. We get on board, we settle in a little bit more, we enjoy our first dinner, perhaps our first cocktail, and then we immediately set sail. So we are always repositioning, and the beauty of being on a boat is that you're sailing overnight. When we wake up the next morning, we have left San Cristobal and we have moved south, and we are now at Española. And Española, if you remember, is waved albatross country. So from April to December, they are there. But we don't go looking for them immediately. Why would we? Because we've got this beach to explore. We want a general introduction to the island of Española before we go any further. We panga onto a wet landing, onto this gorgeous powdery white sand beach. We trip over more sea lions. As we walk amongst them, enjoying their proximity, we can get within meters of them. Being a national park, there are guidelines as to how close you can get, and the naturalist will always go over that with you. And at the landing, we may well share the landing with other vessels. When we wake up, we're normally going to be with perhaps, say, 3 or 4 other vessels who are all also going to be landing and doing a walk. So we do have to bear that in mind. We may all end up on the beach at the same time, but then we will split up and we will go our separate ways. So we're walking through the sea lions that are snoozing, perhaps frolicking in the waves. We're dodging hermit crabs. We're looking at the mockingbirds. This is a particular Española mockingbird. We are potentially going to come across our first beach marine iguanas, and it is literally a postcard. It is a stunning introduction. Even the doves here are pretty. It's ridiculous. We reposition after our morning walking along the beach, having a swim. It always feels a little bit like Christmas because we're all so excited that we're finally here. Boobies might start swooping while we're in the water, swooping over our heads on their lookout for prey. And then in the afternoon, we head to the landing where we will walk in order to try and find waved albatross. And here, this is one of the only spots where the marine iguanas actually change colour during the breeding season to attract females. And we may well come across a few in the last throes of that coloration change before we start going over a boulder-strewn pathway in order to reach a colony of waved albatross. They are beyond beautiful. They are such stunning birds. And the ability to simply sit and watch them. There will be Nazca boobies. I had a racer snake that ran over my foot while I just sat and watched them. It's magic. It's absolutely magic. So yeah, we walk from the colony on the cliff top just slightly inland, and we come into this picturesque meadow. And then when these albatross get up and start to walk in an incredibly ungainly fashion, you know, trying to find their mate or just moving and stretching and whatnot, we can just get up and we can walk with them. And it is super special. So one day on Española, but it's a lovely day. And that's our opportunity to come across those waved albatross that are there from April to December. Overnight, we set sail again, moving west towards Floriana. And Floriana has a somewhat checkered history. There's lots of human stories, ghost stories, and all sorts of weird and wonderful things that have happened here. But obviously it's wildlife that we're interested in. We start the day off with another glorious Bounty advert, White Sand Beach, where we might come across great herons, great blue herons. You can see the marine iguana here, just having a little nosy across the lava. And we then have the opportunity to get in the water at Devil's Crown. So here we have swum with rays, manta rays, we've swum with hammerhead sharks, we've swum with Galápagos sharks, with reef tip sharks. The tropical fish here is just the variety, the colours. It's a fantastic snorkel spot, and we will spend on average about an hour in the water with most of our snorkels, and this is a fabulous one. In the afternoon, we visit Post Office Bay, and Post Office Bay is, there's a lovely story here. So essentially in 1793, as you can see here, James Colnett deposited a barrel, and into that barrel he put some post so that other passing ships could essentially, sailors could come ashore, they could grab that post, and they would take it with them and deliver it if they were going in the relevant direction. This is something we still do today. So what we do is we write postcards, we put the date upon which we deposit them into this post office barrel, but you don't stamp them. So we basically rely on future tourists coming to Post Office Bay to sift through all the postcards. You can see there's actually a jiffy bag and a few plastic bags full of post just peeking out at the top there. And what you do is we go in and we sift through them. And the idea is that if you can hand deliver the postcard, that is brilliant. But I always take a couple for Australia. I can post them to my brother and ask him to get them to the right place. And it's just fun finding out how long it takes them to actually get to their destination. My mum and my sister last year, for example, had their postcard before I'd even got back to the UK. This year, it's only arrived now, 8 months after it was left. So you never know. It's a lovely thing. Yeah, it's a bit of fun. From Floriana, we start to head up into the central group of islands, and we hit the island of Santa Cruz. An overnight cruise once again, and we land on the northwestern corner in a place called Dragon Hill. And Dragon Hill is called because there is a hill there that, if you've had a few beers, could possibly look a bit like an iguana. So hence the name Dragon Hill. It's a glorious stretch of beach that we walk across. There are Opuntia cacti everywhere. We learn about how the giant tortoises use and feed on the cacti. We go through rock pools where there may well be lava herons that are searching for prey. We start to walk inland into a really lush, dense interior where you don't know where the butterflies end and the flowers begin. It's a really stunning little path through the bush. Our target species at Dragon Hill, as the name suggests, are land dragons. So this is where we're likely to first come across land iguanas in all their glory. So they're always in a different state of molt. They burrow and they nest here. So sometimes they're just sticking their heads out of these underground burrows. Sometimes they are blatantly lying in the path and they will not get out of your way. And why should they, quite frankly? So it's rather special. You're constantly going through the undergrowth looking for, signs of that wonderful yellow, orange, rusty colouring, whilst you're also listening to mockingbirds and to Darwin's finches and a variety of other wildlife, lots of bugs and butterflies and stilts and all sorts of marvellousness. So land iguanas, check. We then go up to a viewpoint. We're looking out over gorgeous, gorgeous ocean. And we, of course, can't wait to get in that ocean. First, though, we need to reposition. And what we do is we go from the lush, beautiful surroundings that we've just seen into bare lava fields. And that contrast from the morning activity to the afternoon is quite staggering. We come into a channel where there is just bare lava as far as the eye can see and a few volcanic cones. And it's quite something. We possibly will go for a walk across the lava. It's undulating. The lava is jagged in places, so you need to be careful with your footing. And if we're lucky, we may well come across penguins. And there is also a fantastic snorkel site here where it's possible, if the penguins are around, they might come into the water and they go past you like bullets. They're absolutely super, super speedy and brilliant to watch underwater. It's just effortless. We then have another overnight sail, and we are heading up to the northeastern part of the archipelago to Genovesa. Unknowingly, because we are generally fast asleep and tucked up in our beds, we're crossing the equator, so we're waking up in the northern hemisphere. And Genovesa, if you remember, is red-footed booby country. Also, very good snorkeling and great for hammerheads. So we start off with the red-footed boobies, we do a beach walk, and we are just basically, it's a feast of wildlife everywhere you look. Red-footed boobies tend to nest in branches at eye level or at head level. So you're walking literally right past these incredible creatures, whereas on the ground, those are the preferred nesting sites for Nazca boobies, who are just impossibly beautiful with that snow white plumage. We may well walk past swallowtail gulls. This one was nesting back in April. We may well come across this sea lion looked far too big to be nursing, but it was. As we just walked through this water channel, we bypassed obviously the sea lions. We came across night herons that were just drying themselves out. And then after a snorkel, hopefully with hammerheads, we then did a panga ride in the afternoon, and we are slowly perusing past cliffs on the lookout, not just for sea lions, but also for Galapagos fur seals, as pictured here. They tend to be nocturnal. They tend to have much denser fur and a slightly different shaped face. But we're looking for them here. We have mating turtles here. And what we are doing on the panga ride is we're making our way towards one of perhaps the most famous spots in the Galapagos, Prince Philip Steps. And this is a short walk up this cliff. It's actually quite an easy walk because you're just basically following steps up to the top of the cliff. So it looks worse than it is. The reality is fine. Once you get to the top, you have got incoming red-footed boobies, incoming frigate birds. You are literally the cacophony. I can't even say it. There's a lot of noise, it's fantastic. It's an assault to the senses. So from frigate birds, they're flying at you, they're flying above you, they're coming in, they're nesting, and then we walk onto a plateau where it is just seabird-tastic. We go looking for an owl here. As yet, I've not seen it, but it is here. But what we have got are frigate birds, Nazca boobies, and one of my absolute favourite birds on the planet, red-billed tropic birds, that are just flying all around your heads. There's just bird life going on everywhere, and it is stonking. So Genovesa is always a real highlight. There is so much going on, brilliant snorkeling, nice easy walks. Yes, you've got the steps to climb up, but if you don't want to climb up with them, you'll just carry on doing a panga ride, and the rest of the group will go off and head up the cliff. So we will be as flexible as we possibly can be if there are any activities that you feel you're just not up to, and that's absolutely fine. After that, we come back down to the central group of islands, and we come to Santa Cruz. And here we have a day on land. How very dare us. And the principal reason for that is that we are now on the lookout for giant tortoise. So we head into the highlands first, where the giant tortoises tend to hang out. And afterwards, we go to the Charles Darwin Research Centre, which is in the southern part of the island, and we spend time learning about all of the initiatives that they are involved in, which are numerous. They're a fantastic organisation, and we also see how they are basically there are pens of all the different types of giant tortoises. There are 12 or 13 different types within the Galapagos, all island based. You can go and see where Lonesome George is now. He basically, after he died, the taxidermist came in, and he is now on show in a cool room at the Charles Darwin Research Centre. So you can go and see Lonesome George as well if you've heard about him. Then we have a day as well, just to spend a bit of time. There are some shops in Santa Cruz, and there's a small town, Puerto Ayora, in the south. There are restaurants, there are bars, and souvenir shops. So there is actually a small town here that we can go and just spend time at as just a little something different. Then the west awaits. And what we do in the west is we start moving across. Just before we hit there, we go up to a fantastic area called Sombrero Chino. It looks like a Chinese hat. And this is one of my favorite days. And we go to an island called Rabida as well. So Sombrero Chino, we do a beach walk. We do a fantastic snorkel. There's always been sharks, rays, penguins. It's brilliantly clear, the water here. There's potential to swim with penguins. And then at Rabida Island, this is the red island. Walking along that beach, anything, whether it's a pelican, whether it is an iguana, whether it's a noddy tern, whether it's sandpipers, it just doesn't matter. The red here is really eye-catching and makes for some quite fantastic photos. And there is a lagoon just behind the beach that often will have flamingos present. We walk to a viewpoint. We enjoy looking for nests, looking for what we can see in the water around as we look down, and we then start heading across to Isabella. So slap bang in the center, you can see Sombrero Chino there in Rabida, and then we come all the way down where my cursor is, all the way down the southeast coast of Isabella, and we wake up the next morning off the south coast, and Sierra Negra, a huge volcanic crater, is essentially what our aim is for the day. We board this rather marvellous tuk-tuk, giant tuk-tuk, I always think it looks like. You haul yourself up into these seats and you're driven about half an hour up into the highlands. And our goal today is to try to see the magnificent 10-kilometre wide crater of the Sierra Negra. Last year it was completely covered in cloud, but it was a fantastic walk. There's a couple of options. There's a walk that is about 9 kilometres that takes 2.5 hours, or there is a steeper 90-minute walk that just covers a couple of kilometres. And actually that is, I would say, the preferred option. I generally find that not the entire group comes. Again, that's perfectly fine. You can stay on board Beluga. You can just stay in town. We moor up at a town here, or you can come on this walk. It's up to you. But this is probably the longest and the most strenuous of the walks that we do. If we get it on a good day with no cloud, this is about a quarter of what we'll see in terms of the vast width of this crater. And we look for things like vermilion flycatcher, other finches. There's lots of beetles, wonderful plant life. So Sierra Negra is quite a big day in terms of walking, not for everybody. And if you want to sit it out, that's absolutely fine. But we then continue up the coast. West is best for penguins, don't forget. And we're now making our way to Punta Moreno and Elizabeth Bay. And this is another one of my favorite days. We do a panga ride in the morning, and we are getting up close and personal with all manner of life. So from pelicans to the flightless cormorant that is only found in this area. It has a startlingly blue eye, and they just gula flap to cool down, and they're literally just saying, la, 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 la. It's just kind of that flap is just constant, but it's that eye that is absolutely arresting. It's like a jewel. It's beautiful. We often have sea lions just swimming alongside us in the boat as we stop to admire penguins that have Sally Lightfoots clambering all over them, that have penguins posing amongst them. This is a wonderful, wonderful day. Sometimes we'll do a walk. It's another lava walk. So we don't always, personally, I would prefer to do the panga ride because there was always so much to see. But ultimately, it's down to the naturalist to decide what he thinks would be best on the day, or she. On the lava walks, if they happen, we talk about the colonization of vegetation, how it begins to give life. From Galapagos lava cactus through to succulents and mangroves. And then you come across these wonderful pools that can be full of sharks that have got caught in the tides. There's potentially seahorses. There's all sorts going on. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. So Jordan, if you're still there and if you're still awake, I'm going to hit play on this. This is a video that I took in Elizabeth Bay last year. And I'm just going to see if you can hear it. If you can't, do let me know. Isabella, one of the far western islands. I've got pelicans behind me, I've got sea lions beneath me, and we've just swum with more turtles than you can shake a stick at. The sun is shining. We walked to the top of the volcano that you can see behind me yesterday, and we were completely covered in clouds. So the 10-kilometre crater was a bit of a whiteout, but it didn't matter. We got Vermilion flycatcher on the way up. I feel rather self-conscious when doing those, but I did quite enjoy that one. In the afternoon, we head to Elizabeth Bay, another one of my favourite destinations. We often go kayaking here, and kayaking with fishing penguins. They always seem to be there, and it is absolutely marvellous. We head further north up the coast to Urbina Bay and Tadges Cove. And here we have a chance to potentially come across more giant tortoise, as per the little icon on the island there. We have another chance to come across land iguanas. And we also do a fantastic walk past Darwin's Lake up to a viewpoint where we can see the northern part of the island, which is just one huge lava flow. It's really quite spectacular. But the next day, we're heading north still, and if you can see Fernandina, which is the small island off the coast of Isabella, this is the youngest island. It's the most active of the Galapagos Islands, and it is a humdinger. And I have 2 words for you about Fernandina, 2 words only: racer snake. If you watched that iconic start to Planet Earth 2 and Islands, you would agree with me that if there is reincarnation, I do not want to come back as a marine iguana. I'm just putting it out there. If you watch that iconic Attenborough footage, it was literally a pair of eyes emerging from a coral beach, which was a newly hatched marine iguana. And instinct told it that when it broke out of its beach cocoon, it needed to run to water. And it ran, and it was followed by hundreds, I kid you not, hundreds of racer snakes. I mean, gosh, what an entrance into the world. What a horrendous entrance into the world. This wonderful photo was taken by the lovely Chris Bennett. Thank you very much. And this was on our trip in April last year. And every time I set foot on Fernandina, I am telling clients, look out for racer snakes. We don't always see them. Well, I've seen them on 2 out of 3 visits, but they are wonderfully camouflaged. We have them running over people's feet. And the reason being is that marine iguanas are here en masse. From the minute you set foot off the front of that panga onto the lava, you're passing them. And when I say they're here en masse, they literally cover every surface. The beach, lava, the bays, there are marine iguanas everywhere. And therefore, if you are a racer snake and this is your preferred prey, this is heaven on earth. It's also pretty good if you are a Galapagos hawk, the only raptor found on the islands. This was taken on the beach at Fernandina on my first visit. And the fact again that I could kneel down literally half a meter away from a raptor blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind. So, you know, the ability to get close to the wildlife and not to influence its behavior, not to stress it, it's just something else. So from Fernandina, we also have the chance here to snorkel with marine iguanas en masse, which we always do, or try to do. And that again is a rather wonderful experience, just seeing how elegant and effortlessly they are able to move underwater. We then start heading up towards the equator. And we're crossing the equator in daylight this time, and that means that we must have a party. So whilst we are having a cocktail on the bridge with the captain, we are always looking out for cetaceans. Although they tend to be there over our summer months and into our autumn months, this is always one of the best places to look for them. And twice I have had the great fortune to see cetaceans in this area. So whether it's dolphins or as we crossed the equator at sunset one evening, we had pilot whales and they just glided past us and it was absolutely wonderful. So that is a sunset and an equator crossing that I will never, ever forget. Absolutely glorious. Overnight, we come up over the top of Isabella Island and we come back into the central group of islands and we reach Santiago, so slap bang in the center there. And here we wake up at Buccaneer Bay. So Santiago was the island that Darwin first set foot on from the Beagle, an area of fantastic scenery, fantastic snorkeling. In April this year, we were all happily swimming along the rock face here and somebody yelled turtle. We looked behind us. It wasn't a turtle, it was a manta ray, and it was the size of a glider, and it was about 1.5 meters beneath us. It was one of those wow moments. There is no other word for it. It was absolutely sensational. And we're coming towards the end of the cruise here, which means that we have to make time to visit one of the most iconic views in the Galapagos. This is Bartolome and Pinnacle Rock that you can see on the right-hand side. We do fantastic snorkeling all around the rock. Penguins are often nesting here, so we do tend to see penguins on most swims that we do in this area. And this again is a bit of a climb, it's quite a climb, but again, we do it slowly. Everyone who has tried to get to the top has made it. We go very, very slowly. We stop for regular water breaks, but then we have this fantastic view awaiting us at the top. So that, in a nutshell, pretty much is our wildlife cruise that you can do with me or with Mark Cowarding and Chris Breen. However, there's one final stop, and that is where my cursor is in the centre of your screen, North Seymour. Right next to Baltra, which is one of the airports for the Galapagos, is North Seymour Island, and it is otherwise known as Bird Island. The minute you clamber off the panga and up onto the island itself, blue-footed boobies are everywhere, frigate birds are everywhere, they're flying with those inflated pouches, swallowtail gulls. Very, very rare are these endemic lava gulls. They are stunningly beautiful, and I've seen them every time we've been on to North Seymour Island. And we tend to go here for sunrise before we fly home. So not everybody chooses to get up for it. Some people would rather just have a leisurely morning and pack, but it's always a lovely way to finish if you want one last wildlife boost, hanging out with lava lizards, last chance to see these land iguanas, although they are on the airport island as well for Vulture. And that is your Galapagos Wildlife Cruise and your Galapagos exclusive with Mark Coedine. 12 nights, many, many islands, lots of landings, daily snorkels at least once a day if you want them. I often run a snorkel school, so if anybody is not particularly confident, I will get in the water with life rings and I will tow you. And it's one of my happy places, really. I offer, towing people through the most incredible underwater environments. And most people who've been in my snorkel school have left the Galapagos having swum with rays, sharks, penguins, marine iguanas, sea lions. It's just fantastic. So it's a hell of a destination. It really is. And it's one of those must-do destinations. So if you are considering it, we have talked about the West, 7-night cruises that go to the West and go to the East. West is best for colder water creatures, penguins, cetaceans between our summer months and autumn, and also for the flightless cormorant. We also talked about the Eastern Galapagos, red-footed boobies on Genovesa and hammerheads, waved albatross between April and December on Española, the snorkeling site of Devil's Crown on Floriana. You can also go just to the north. You can also go just to the south. There are so many combinations of what you can do. You can come on an exclusive charter with us, or if you prefer, we can just basically organise you a cabin on a pre-scheduled departure. So we fit in a departure that suits your holiday dates, and Bob's your uncle. It's brilliant. And Jordan's your aunt. Here he is.
Here I am. Well, thank you very much, Helen. That was absolutely fantastic. It's
Oh, God, made a bit of
definitely
a hatch at the video, but never mind. It was only me.
no, we could hear more of the video than we could on the test earlier. So
Oh, good. Oh,
yeah,
good.
that's good.
Okay.
But no, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. And yeah, definitely made me excited to go there. So
And
looking
you're off
forward to it.
later this month.
Yes, so very excited and
Yeah.
yeah, driven up lots of enthusiasm, and I hope you have for everyone else as well. So
Brilliant.
um, so right now I'm going to launch a poll.
Yep.
So you guys can put register your interest there, and which trips you'd be interested in. And I also have a few questions for Helen, if you're ready for
Right.
those, H.
I am.
So, do you know what the best islands are for snorkeling with sea lions, and which ones of our itineraries are the best ones for snorkeling with sea lions?
Oh, you got sea lions are found throughout the archipelago. I wouldn't say there is one place that is better than any other. So no, they are found everywhere. I've snorkeled with them off Floriana. I've snorkeled with them off Isabella, off Sombrero Chino. So no, there's not really anywhere specifically. The more specific snorkeling sites would be for things like marine iguana, which would definitely be up in the northwest at Fernandina, but for sea lions, they are pretty much everywhere.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. How busy are the landing sites around the islands in general?
Okay, so being a national park, as I mentioned right at the start, 97% of the Galapagos is classified as national park. The itineraries are very, they're set and they're set well in advance. So Beluga, for example, always sails with Cacciolotti, with that one of the vessels that I mentioned at the start. So that they are always together. So whenever you wake up the next morning at a new landing site or when you reposition, they are always going to be traveling together, and that's a safety thing. So I would say on average, you're probably looking at 3 to 4 vessels being moored at any one landing site. So they will use pangas to get you onto the island itself. So it can be a little busy. You could have, let's say, 6 or 8 pangas all arriving onto one beach at the same time. But when you are on the island, you then tend to follow marked trails, and you will go off, Beluga group will go one way, the Cachalote group will go another, Passion will go another, whatever the other vessels are. So it's all very well regulated. When we are on the islands, we stay together. We have a set time limit for each landing, but I would expect 3 to 4 vessels to be the average at every landing site. Yeah, so it's worth being aware of that in advance. You rarely get a place to yourself.
Okay, fantastic. And how long are the landings at each place? Well, just in general, a rough guide.
It varies according to how long the walks are. Most trails are 1 to 2 kilometres. Some are circular routes, some are not. So essentially, every evening when the naturalist on board sits you down and tells you what to expect the next day, they will tell you, how long we're going to be out for. And it's all very timed. Let's say breakfast is at 7 o'clock. First panga goes to an outing at 8 o'clock. 10 o'clock, we might be back and in the water, and then 12 o'clock lunch, and then 2 o'clock, we have the next one. And so it's quite regulated when we're on board. The itineraries are set and we'll be told how long to expect to be out for at any one time. So we can dress appropriately, we can take enough water. Basically looking after everybody is the key thing because it is hot. The excursions are different lengths, but we will be fully informed of what to expect on a nightly basis.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And then for the last one was just how mobile do you need to be to, oh no, we've got a few more actually, but how mobile do you need to be to get around the islands?
Mobile, it's more a question of balance. Some of those slides where getting in and out of the pangas, sometimes you are literally walking off the front of the panga. If it's a wet landing, you're going onto a beach and that's fine. But if it's a dry landing, you're walking off the front of the panga onto lava. On my trip, I will always be first off, or try to be, so I can help everybody and carry bags. We always want you to have your hands free. Safety is absolutely paramount. The naturalist guide on board, he or she will be doing this on a daily basis and will always be available to help people get on and off the pangas. It's more that the trails, sometimes they're quite boulder stridden. Some of them are over lava, which is uneven and can be jagged. Some of the walks are just gravel paths, for example, or coral beach paths. So you don't have to be super fit by any stretch of the imagination, but I would say balance. You could. There are walking sticks. So having a walking stick is often quite useful as well. I think the main thing is being able to get on and off the pangas. If you can do that, you can certainly deal with anything on the islands. And there is always the possibility of just sitting things out, on some of the bigger walks. A lot of the group will sit it out. Not everybody wants to walk 9 kilometers in 28-degree heat. So we will always, sort of discuss that again on a nightly basis. Coming back to the pangas, though, one thing I didn't mention is that we generally snorkel off a ladder. So we jump off the side of the panga and lower ourselves into the water, but we use a ladder to get back onto the panga. So you just need a bit of upper body strength to get yourself back onto that ladder. But again, the panga driver, me, Mark or Chris or the naturalist will help you in and out of the panga. So we're not always snorkeling from beaches.
Okay, brilliant. And we should have a couple of questions about single cabins,
Okay.
and whether we pair people up. Which you
We
can.
do, yeah. We pair people up on a same-sex sharing basis. So I'm always sharing a room with another female. Most of the vessels that we use won't have necessarily a dedicated single cabin. And as with many vessels, if you want sole occupancy, you're often, you're being charged almost twice the amount, which is not ideal, but that's how vessels work around the world. Newer vessels that are being built will often have dedicated single cabins, but in the Galapagos, it's generally going to be a twin cabin, and you will be either paying for solo occupancy if you want it, or we can pair you up with somebody else. Yeah.
Brilliant. And I think last one is what type of camera lens would you recommend for walks? Are we thinking wide angles or telephotos?
Oh, right. Okay. So standard, what we generally recommend is a 1 to 400 mil. That would be sufficient. Many people I've traveled with literally use their mobile phone for everything. You know, if you're trying to get penguins from a pangas swimming around you, using video on a mobile phone is often far more effective than getting a blur as the penguin shoots past you in the water. So a lot of people do actually just rely on their mobile phone because you can get so close. There's not a huge amount in terms of sort of landscape photography, so wide angles not necessarily, although I'm not particularly, you're probably in a better position to know more about what you would use a wide angle lens for than I am. Yeah, you get so close that, you know, as I say, anything will do really. Yeah, but not a huge, great big long lens because you just don't need it with the wildlife there.
No. Okay, brilliant. No, I'm sure it would just be a case of perspective for a wide angle. If that's what you're into and what you want to capture, then
Yeah,
that's up to you really.
yeah.
Cool, brilliant. Well, I think that's it. Yeah, all the
Brilliant.
questions. Yeah,
Okay,
that was
so we've got to
brilliant.
move on then because we've got an exclusive
Oh, we do have an exclusive offer, don't we?
discount. Sorted. Yeah, basically we've got, if any of these itineraries have captured your imagination and you'd like any more information on them, then the poll, you know, will ensure that you get the travel plans tomorrow. And then if you'd like to go ahead with any of these trips, we have £150 off per person, and you can just quote the code that is in the bottom left-hand side of your screen now. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, H. So that concludes the end of our talk. And as you can see on the right-hand side here, we have our next talks coming up for the rest of January and into early February. Next week will be Botswana, which I believe is with Emma Healy and Nick Joins. And I'll also be doing a talk later on in March about a place close to mine and Helen's heart, which is Kruger National Park. So I hope you'll all come along to join us for that in March. But
Keep an
thanks.
eye on the events page as well, actually, on our website, because there may be another one coming as well.
Okay, very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, everyone, for coming. Hope you all enjoy your evening. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.